So I started, like everyone's life, you start in 2014. But that's when I graduated high school, and that's when I started university. So I grew up in the Netherlands. I went to high school there. I did the whole educational trajectory there. And I studied pedagogical sciences at Utrecht University. And that's basically, it's a degree around how our brains develop, how children develop, how we raise children from infancy all the way to adulthood into competent citizens of the world, basically, and what factors come into play when we are looking at how we raise competent adults as well. But I dropped out after 1 year because I didn't think the job prospects were that great in the Netherlands. So I packed my bags and I moved to the UK. So I studied psychology at Brunel University. So I moved to London and studied psychology. And then during my degree, so instead of a 3-year degree, I did a 4-year degree that includes internships. So as part of my degree, I did about 6 internships. And 5 out of 6 of those internships were at startups, and they were in varying fields. So I did ed tech, did robotics, medical tech, and assistive tech. And that really helped me understand what I like to work on and where I think my skill set is needed the most. And then after I graduated, I started working at one of the startups that I actually interned at. So I started working at the Crafty Robot, and I developed educational materials for them and content and video, but also had a lot of fun running these robotics workshops. So this is one of our very popular workshops around making potato robots. So robots out of potatoes and parsnips and carrots. And whenever I show this picture, I have to tell you that potatoes make very bad wheels for robots. If you're ever thinking about making a robot out of vegetables, then please don't use potatoes. But parsnips and carrots are very good wheels. Use the potatoes for the body instead. So I had a lot of fun doing that. And then on the side, I was also a coding instructor. So I worked at an organization called Code Forest Girls, where I was a coding instructor in Python. And it's a non-for-profit, basically aimed at educating as many women as possible to enter the tech workforce and to educate them with free courses. So I was a coding instructor on a range of these courses. Now, on the side, I was also freelancing. So I was running a lot of workshops. I was teaching a lot of people, and I was teaching young people from the age of 6, basically, all the way to 60 and 70. And I taught a range of things, but most of them were in the realm of physical computing and creative computing, because I felt like the world of computer science education, to me, was very dry and it didn't interest me. But the minute I was able to create something with my own hands, that sparked much more joy for me and inspiration. So I started doing that, and then I went basically all over the world to help people understand computer science better through these physical computing projects. And then, of course, it was during COVID, so we had to do online classes too. And I have taught many people who I'm very happy to have contributed to their journey in coding and programming. But then I realized a little bit actually here when I was teaching and educating, I realized that I don't have a degree in computer science, programming, or in education. So I might as well pursue a degree in one of them. So I got a Fulbright scholarship to go study at the Harvard Graduate School of Education in Boston. And at the same time, I was also cross-registered at MIT. So I did lots of really cool things. I had the best time there. And I took classes around game design, but also digital fabrication. And so I made my own furniture and made my own PCBs and created, embroidered these huge installations that are interactive and with electronics embedded into them. So with that degree in my pocket and with still being a Fulbright scholar, I was able to go and teach at Khan Lab School, which is, in my opinion, one of the best schools out there. I had, again, the best time there. And it's a very innovative school that's based on mastery-based learning. It's also part of Khan Academy, and it's founded by Soltane. And so we had the opportunity to implement a lot of the learning philosophies that we thought were going to help children develop their knowledge and their skills in a much more better way. And this is also when I started looking into AI technologies, because Khan Lab School or Khan Academy started working with OpenAI to develop Khan Migo, which was one of the first AI tutors used for education. But then my all good things must come to an end, and my Fulbright scholarship was only for 2 years, so I packed my bags to go back home to London, and I started a job at the Raspberry Pi Foundation. Now, this looks like very linear, but I had lots of side quests that I didn't include in here. So lots of other side projects that I did, lots of other things that I worked on. But like any career, it's not as linear and not as beautifully laid out. But I tried for your convenience. So what do I do at the Raspberry Pi Foundation? So the Raspberry Pi Foundation is a pretty big organization that, well, relatively small actually, but they do lots of really impactful work. So we create lots of free resources that go all over the world, mostly around computer science, but also around AI. And so what I work on as part of the AI literacy team, I work on a program called Experience AI, and Experience AI is a program around educating about AI and machine learning, and it's developed with researchers and people who work at Google DeepMind and Cambridge University. So we have aligned everything to be technically accurate, but also pedagogically sound. So we have an in-house research team, but also at Cambridge University that helps us. And so, on a daily basis, I work on Experience AI, and that involves creating research-informed educational content around AI safety, around AI, and around machine learning. And it's basically we create it because we would like young people to be critical and empowered users of technology. So we create all these free resources in order to achieve that. But when I say research-informed educational content, that means that I engage in lots of research. And I already mentioned that we have an in-house research team who do incredible work, and I am more than fortunate to be able to work from them and learn from them. But on myself, I also engage lots in research around the topics that have to do with AI literacy and AI safety and AI education. And I research lots of pedagogies as well. And part of my job also involves delivering training. So the program that I work on, Experience AI, has now reached about 1.5 million students. We have partnered with more than 20 countries or more than 20 partners all over the world in more than 20 countries. And so it's been a real privilege to be working on this. And then I also engage and I write about AI pedagogies, and pedagogy is basically work that we use to convey what the best practices are around teaching a certain subject. And as it may happen, AI requires a whole lot of other pedagogies than other subjects might require, though there are lots of overlap as well. But there, I believe, and my whole team, we work on creating these pedagogies and research-informed principles that help us teach about AI in a much better way that enables students to engage in deep learning experiences. And then finally, I have the wonderful opportunity to talk about my work. So I get to present here and I get to talk at conferences around the importance of responsible AI education. But a lot of times when I talk about AI literacy, I notice that people come in from a different perspective and a different angle. So to make sure that we're all on the same page, AI literacy is basically the skill of the ability to navigate AI tools responsibly. And this visual, I use this quite a lot. I pull it out whenever I'm talking about AI literacy, just to show that there are different lenses that you can look at it. And this visual is actually adapted from friends at the Stanford Accelerator for Learning, who are also doing incredible work, and from whose research I read quite regularly as well. And they have this framework, which is that you could look at navigating AI tools, and you can look at AI literacy from a user perspective. So how do you use AI tools? You can also look at it from a critiquing perspective. So how do you critique AI tools, and how are you aware of the bias? How are you aware of like all the concepts that come with critiquing AI tools? And then you can also look at it from a developer point of view. So how do you create AI tools? Now at the bottom, and this is our adaptation, is understanding AI as well. So in order to use it, to critique it, and to develop it, you need to be able to understand what AI technologies are. So there are a few design principles that we use when we design learning experiences around AI. And all of it is to ensure that, again, we are safely educating children and young people to use these tools in a responsible way, in a critical way, but also in an empowered way. And one of the things that we do, which is sometimes a little bit controversial, is that we avoid anthropomorphizing AI. So AI tools are deliberately designed to sound human and to look human. And you might have seen that whenever you Google something around robots or AI, there's always usually a female-looking robot as well. And anthropomorphizing AI has some downsides that we're not very keen on. These include that when we anthropomorphize AI, we might risk that students will see AI systems as people, and then use it for all sorts of inappropriate things. So what we see right now is that young people are using AI tools to replace friendships, to replace mental health support, but also to replace the basic social contact that we have with each other, is now being replaced or replicated in AI tools. And this is exacerbated when we anthropomorphize AI tools. So we tend to avoid anthropomorphizing because then these tools will be seen as human, and we will overestimate the capabilities of these tools, and we don't want that. We want children and young people, and also adults, by the way, to be responsible and aware users of AI technologies, and understand that these tools are data-driven. There's no person behind it. There's a developer behind it, but the output is generated through data. Anthropomorphizing AI may also distract the responsibility away from the people who are developing the tools. And we might imagine this AI agent who is responsible for everything. So we avoid anthropomorphizing AI by using very careful language. So we avoid saying like AI does, or AI is this, AI is that, or AI learns and AI understands, but we use like process. We use technical language to describe AI tools. Now, the second thing that is very important when you're teaching about AI is distinguishing very clearly the difference between predictive and generative AI. And you might agree with me, or you might have heard it as well. Lots of people equate ChatGPT to AI. And but essentially, ChatGPT is a generative AI tool, generates new content based on data. But the true transformative power of AI is actually in the predictive AI tools and the applications that we use for predictive purposes. So we make a very clear distinction between generative AI, predictive AI, and this is a slide from one of the lessons that we have around the topic. So we make a very clear distinction, and then we highlight examples of predictive AI and how life-changing those could be and how transformative they are. Like, for example, this application called FireSat is around detecting fires, wildfires, and helping to predict where they might spread next. And this is keeping people safe who are living in areas where wildfires are much more prevalent. And then finally, when you're teaching about AI, it's very important that you center the metacognitive skills, because generative AI tools are changing how we learn. Now, you might have heard about critical thinking and metacognitive skills, and you might not even have a real understanding of what both are, basically. But metacognitive skills are basically our ability to think about our thinking, and to structure our thinking in ways that will help us learn better and do things better, to problem solve better. And we do that by analyzing our thinking, We do that by monitoring our cognitive processes. And we do that by selecting the most optimal problem-solving strategies. We do that by setting goals, and we do that by reflecting. And that all allows us to self-regulate how we learn, right? Now, there's a very important paper that I would like to bring to your attention if you're interested in this as well, which is around how we can protect human cognition in the age of AI. And honestly, I think the paper talks more about what happens if we don't protect human cognition in the age of AI, which is equally important because it makes us aware of the downfalls and the concerns around AI tool usage. But basically, this paper and about 50 others that I have been reading over the past few months basically pose this dilemma, actually, which is that generative AI tools are changing a lot about how we are thinking about our thinking. Generative AI tools are changing how we are doing the metacognition, and they're changing a whole lot. So they're changing how we acquire knowledge, because we now have access to vast amounts of information that is almost overwhelming to process, and also impossible to process all of it. And that means that we tend to engage with content that converges and that aligns with our beliefs. And that is problematic because then you don't seek out alternative opinions, and you're not exposed to content that basically disagrees with you, but it creates this echo chamber around you of content and output that basically agrees to everything that you say and that agrees to your beliefs. And so generative AI tools are changing how we reason as well and how we think about things. And that happens because of the above, basically, but that it's also because it influences our decision-making processes, and it creates an over-reliance on AI tools to do the thinking for us. And this is also called cognitive offloading. So we delegate all these important metacognitive processes that we essentially have to go through, but we delegate those to an outside tool, and that influences how we reason. Then it influences how we learn, and this is basically what I'm here to talk about, because when you're exposed to this much learning, this much information, and when tasks can be completed in like a few instances, then you're basically engaging in very surface level learning. There's not any deep learning happening. It's not boosting any knowledge gain. And again, it's creating an over-reliance on these AI tools to learn. And then two more, which is it changes how we express creativity, because basically these tools, and there are lots of ways to describe generative AI tools, but essentially they recycle the same content, and then at the end you get to the average of the average. So that means that you get repetitive patterns in output and repetitive patterns in what we are able to create with AI tools. I'm pretty sure that my statement here will become obsolete within weeks, but these tools are basically data-driven, and they tend to converge at some point. So it's at the cost of the collective diversity, especially when it comes to creativity. And then finally, and this is, again, a concept that you might have heard a lot when we talk about AI tools in education, is that it has been impacting how we think critically. And again, thinking critically is very related to metacognitive skills, which is to think about our thinking. But critical thinking is about how we evaluate sources and how we evaluate information and how we assess whether something is useful to us and to our learning or not. And because we're using generative AI tools so much, it's also reducing our ability to think critically about things. And that's because we're not engaging cognitively as much as we should. And again, for the third time, there's an over-reliance on these tools to do the critical thinking and to do the evaluating for us. Oops. Now, a lot of times when I talk about AI tools in education, I love to use the Bloom's taxonomy. So the framework of Bloom's taxonomy is something that I always refer to whenever I'm explaining how education should be and what the ideal educational journey is and the ideal learning journey is. And we just established that uncritical AI use, so AI use that isn't governed, that isn't guided, it can lead to over-reliance on these tools, and that weakens our higher order thinking. So it decreases our problem-solving skills, our critical thinking skills, and creativity skills. So if you look at the Bloom's taxonomy, these higher order thinking skills are basically at the top of the pyramid. And this pyramid, basically, it's a way to structure learning, and it goes from least complex to most complex. And ideally, in a learning experience, you would want to go through this journey. You would want to go up this pyramid. So you go from remembering, understanding, all the way to essentially creating something. And this could be a project or a physical artifact. But this makes learning so powerful is because you progress through these stages. But when we use LLMs to replace a lot of this, a lot of this engagement, then we are skipping these levels. We are skipping we're skipping essentially more than half of the whole pyramid, if not almost all of it. And so traditionally, if you're using the web, or if you're using a book, or if you're using, the traditional way of learning, then you would go through these stages, right? So you would go through all these stages. But by using an LLM, you no longer need to remember anything. You don't really need to engage cognitively to understand certain topics, because you could prompt it out and then you will have an explanation. There's not really a need to apply information anymore, because you could prompt these tools to do that for you, etc., etc. The only thing that remains is creating, and that because AI tools are not really good at creating artifacts, be it when, again, I think this statement will become obsolete in a few weeks. But yeah, so this whole pyramid is to show how ideal learning should look like, and how it's actually getting a little bit influenced and broken down actually by using LLMs and by using generative AI tools. And in practice, we see this too, right? So Anthropic, which is one of the companies that I do admire in the way that they look at education, and they also found that these students use Claude mostly for solving problems, for creating new content and analyzing. So they did all of this almost. They used large language models for, and that is problematic. So how should education evolve when we have access to all these tools and to all these opportunities to offload basically all these cognitive tasks, where we offload all these responsibilities and we offload the engagements that we have with the cognitive engagements that we have when it comes to learning. And this is basically rooted, my first recommendation is rooted in what I think everyone should spend a large chunk of time on, and that is to truly understand what a good learning experience is. We've all been through school. I'm pretty sure every one of you has done some kind of education. We all have an understanding of what education is, but it's very likely that you've never been taught how to learn well. It's just something that you basically stumble across. And we actually have to be very aware of how we are learning and what the cognitive processes are that we engage in and what works for us. And this is the same. So at Harvard, when I went to education school, we had this module called How People Learn. It was basically to get us all on the same page. Because to learn is to engage in social interactions. And for you to understand what a good learning interaction is, means that you need to think about how you're thinking and think about how you're learning. And that means that we need to focus on these metacognitive skills in learning experience, right? And this means that understanding that learning is social and it can't be replicated through digital means. And I like to draw a bridge or analogy to how we learn languages, or to research that shows how infants learn languages. So when babies are born, they have a lot of neurons in their brains that they can use to differentiate between sounds. And this will help the infant when they are growing up, so when the child grows up, to make it learning a language easier. So when they are exposed to certain languages from a very young age, so between 6 and 9 months, I think, then these children have a much easier time learning that specific language later on. But that effect is only if the baby is engaging in in-person engagements and interactions with a person. And this can't be replicated by playing a video. So a few years ago, you had all these videos and these cassettes and these DVDs that claimed that you could teach your baby a new language, or that it would help babies start to differentiate between sounds, and that could then help them learn a new language. But this effect was never replicated through digital means. So you do need that in-person social interaction where you are aware of each other's emotional state, and you can respond based on that. So to understand what a good learning experience is to understand that learning is social and that it can't be replicated through digital means. So when I say that we need to focus on metacognitive skills in learning experiences, that means that we need to start reflecting. We need to reflect on our learning. But if we don't reflect, the information goes in one ear and goes out the other. And that's basically what happens when you're engaging in generative AI tools exclusively. So we need to start reflecting more on how we are using these AI tools, but also reflecting on how we are learning. And that will help us to document. So documentation is another very important aspect that I very believe in. And I think that reflections and documentations help us put down our thought processes and help us think about our thinking. And again, engaging cognitively in the processes that we use to learn and to learn new information. And then third is that we need to put an emphasis on higher order skills, higher order thinking skills and creation. So you saw the Bloom's taxonomy, you saw the Anthropic report, you saw the research. Basically means that now that we have all these AI tools, there's less need to remember everything and to remember all the facts. But if we include that and we focus on creating projects and we focus on creating artifacts, we create things, be it physical or digital, then we are using all of these skills and all of these levels of thinking. And that allows students to engage in still powerful learning experiences. And this is why I always tend to converge towards project-based learning. And I'm very biased on that because at the ed school, I looked at constructionism a lot, and I am a firm believer that you learn best by creating, by reflecting, and by sharing your work and your learnings. So definitely a little bit biased there, but I think that project-based learning is the way forward when it comes to a world where AI tools can perform most of the tasks that originally we were doing in our heads. And then finally, there needs to be increased governance in educational spaces and products. And that means that we need to have good educational values that are aligned with these technological developments. And that means that we need to engage researchers, and we need to have these research-informed policies that prioritize educational values and that align with educational values in AI tools, in the development of AI tools. So I didn't want this presentation to be a grim outlook on what the space for education is and how terrible it is. And if I did, I apologize. But I wanted to leave you maybe with a little bit more of a hopeful note of what you can do, right? Because you have a lot to say, you have a lot to do, because the world needs more people like you. We need more people that are critical users and empowered users. We need critical and empowered developers and critiquers of AI technologies. And we need people like that who are aware of what's happening around them. They are aware of how they are using AI tools as well, but also aware of how they are thinking. So you have to be aware of your interactions with AI tools and develop these strong metacognitive skills that will allow you to build these skills that are basically becoming more and more rare in this day and age. The field also needs more diverse voices. It needs people from the space of education. It needs people from all over the world, from all different fields and disciplines, to come together and share what they think and share how they envision AI technologies to benefit more than one community. And I'm talking about language barriers are also a thing which I haven't mentioned here yet. Well, most of these AI tools, they're mostly used in Western English-speaking countries. That means that lots of other countries and children across the world are left behind. So we need people who come from these areas who say, hey, like the tools that you're developing, you're not really developing them for us, and here's why you should do that. And this is to ensure that everyone can benefit from these tools that are being created, especially underrepresented communities. And then lastly, I want to leave you with this, is that you need to have strong values. And if you lead with values that align with what you're working on, then I'm very sure that you're going to be working on very impactful and very good work that will benefit most of us. So we need more diverse people. We need more diverse voices, but we also need more critical users, developers, and critiquers of AI technologies. And I really hope that you will be one of these people, or that I have inspired you a little bit about how you could help advance this field a little bit better and further. I think I'm a little bit over time as well, but thank you so much for listening. If there's any questions, I'm very happy to take those right now. You can also connect with me or send me an email, and then yeah, you can ask me right away. Thank you for coming, everyone. And again, if there are any questions, I'm happy to take those. And I'm not sure if Elif is still here, and if your internet kept on.
Yeah, I can help moderate. If anybody has any queries, please ask. Yeah, he is here, but I think so there might be some issues in the network.
You are very welcome.
Yeah, hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, I have a question because I'm curious. Maybe I missed it because I joined a bit late. But what's the current study on cognitive effects of using LLM? Like, is there strong studies showing that there has been cognitive decline among people who use LLM, or is it like the opposite or something in the middle, or?
Yeah, no, so I think most of the research that I've been reading has been pointing towards how cognitive engagement has been on the decline. So a lot of the skills that we engage in, like reasoning and knowledge acquisition and learning and creativity, all of these are on decline basically because of generative AI tools, and how these tools are allowing us to offload a lot of these tasks. So yes, most definitely the research is pointing towards pretty grim outputs. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's interesting. Like I remember, I think during the summer or something, a few months ago, ChatGPT and I think Gemini also now introduced guided learning like as a option, as a mode that you can set on LLM. So when you're interacting with it, it will sort of, the idea is that it should act more like an assistant or like a teacher, so that the way when you ask questions and stuff like that, it will ask follow-up questions and try to probe your understanding and stuff like that. I guess that's like, because it's a new mode, right? So there hasn't been any study on how it affects people using that. And also, I guess, what's I going to say? Yeah, like what you said today is sort of like, it also confirms my bias, right? Like how it's declining the cognitive ability of people, and because there needs to be some consciousness, right, from people, and a conscious effort when they're using the LLM to not fall into the trap of comfortability, that you can get something done in a few seconds, right, as opposed to like an hour a day or a few weeks or something like that.
Yes, well, and I think a lot of these tools, and I'm actually very curious to see what the reports are from these study mode tools that the big players are now developing. But I think a very important part that we are missing sometimes when we talk about these tools is that most of them are framed as tutors, so intelligent tutors or AI tutors. But tutoring is not learning. So most of the learning that we do is not a tutor, it's a supplement. Being tutored is something that you do after school, for example, for a few hours, maybe each day, or a few hours each week. It's a supplement to your learning. The actual learning that you're doing is social, it's with peers, it's by engaging in good dialogue, in good learning interactions, and in good dialogue with someone who's more knowledgeable than you. And just like how I pointed towards the research of how you can't really learn a new language if you just listen to it or you're just digitally exposed to it, but you need to engage with someone in person, because a lot of learning is social. I think the same point stands for when we're engaging with these AI tutors, is that a lot of it is not social, it's still individual. So it's just you as one person who is engaging with the tool, as opposed to collaborating with a peer. So I think a big dream of mine is where we develop tools that can identify which students would work best together, which students could complement each other's knowledge with each other, which students can help each other progress to the next stage in their understanding and their mastery of a topic. And I think a lot of tutors or a lot of AI tutors won't be that effective because they're not a human.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
All right. Any other questions for Rehana? Cool. Okay. Yeah. So Rehana, thank you so much for your time. This is a fantastic presentation. I would love for you to stay involved in Discord. If you don't have an invite already, I can email that to you. But we always have some questions popping up after the presentation, so we definitely don't want to lose you. But yeah, thank you so much for your time.